നാരായണാഖിലഗുരോ ഭഗവൻ നമസ്തേ Vairappa. Good morning to everyone. With the blessings of Punna Guruvayoorappan, we are doing our fourth session of Narayaneeyam, and today we will be discussing the third Dashaka of Narayaneeyam. Before we start the discussion, Anju will start with an invocation.
Krishna Guruvayurappa Sharanam Gajananam Bhutaganadisevitam Kapittajambu Phalasarabhakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vikhneshwarapadapangkajam शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये कृष्णा गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं कृष्णा गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं कृष्णा गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं
Anju, you can see my slides, right?
Yes.
So, Narayana, as we said, we are starting the Dashaka 3 of Narayaneeyam. This Dashakam is a very important Dashakam for all of us because it deals with how a Bhakta should be. It is describing the qualities of a Bhakta. It is saying about Bhakta Swarupa Varnanam. So if you remember in the last two Dashakams that we covered, in the first Dashakam, Bhattathiri addressed Brahman, the Nirguna form of Guruvayoorappan. He described the Nirguna form and how it is. In the second Dashakam, Bhattadiri described the Saguna form. He did a Keshadipada Varnana of Guruvayoorappan and also spoke about his glories. Now in the third Dashakam, Bhattadiri is telling us how we should be, how we as a Bhakta should behave, or we should try to emulate, to realize Guruvayoorappan. That is what Bhattadiri is addressing in Dashaka 3. So as I said, it is Bhakta Swarupa Varnanam, the qualities of a perfect devotee. So starting off with Sloka 1.
पडन्दो नामानि प्रमदभरसिन्धौ निपतिताः स्मरन्तो रूपं ते वरद कथयन्तो गुणकथाः चरन्तो ये भक्तास्त्वयि खलु रमन्ते परममून् अहं धन्यान् मन्ये समधिगत सर्वाभिलषितान् ഭക്താഭീഷ്ടങ്ങൾ നൽകുന്ന ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ നാമങ്ങൾ ചൊല്ലിക്കൊണ്ടും സ്വരൂപം ധ്യാനിച്ചുകൊണ്ടും ഗുണങ്ങളും കഥകളും പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടും പരമാനന്ദ സമുദ്രത്തിൽ മുഴുകി സഞ്ചരിക്കുന്ന ഏത് ഭക്തന്മാരാണോ നിന്തിരുവടിയിൽ തന്നെ രമിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് അവരെ മാത്രമേ ഞാൻ എല്ലാ ആഗ്രഹങ്ങളും സാധിച്ച ഭാഗ്യവാന്മാരായി വിചാരിക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ.
So let's go into the Dashaka of 3, Sloka 1, starting off with Bhattadiri is addressing Guruvayoorappan here. He's starting off with addressing the idol of Guruvayur at Guruvayoorappan, and he's saying, Varada, who is Bhagavan, who is Varada, who is bestower of boons. That means when we ask for a boon, he is the bestower of it. So Varada. Now, Bhattadiri is talking about very important aspects that we have to follow as a Bhakta. The first one is Te Namani, thy names, the divine names of Bhagavan. Padandaha, chanting, repeatedly chanting Bhagavan's name. This is called Japa. So Bhattadiri is addressing Japa Yoga or Japa here, where somebody repeatedly with devotion chants Bhagavan's name. Padandaha, Rubam Te, which is Bhagavan's Rupam, Thai form, which is the idol of Guruvayoorappan that we see at Guruvayur. And as we said in the first and second Dashaka, it is also our own Atma Swarupam. The idol at Guruvayur is nothing but our own Atma Swarupam, the Chaitanya in us. That is the Chaitanya at Guruvayur. And so Bhattacharya is addressing Padandaha, repeating that name of the Lord, and also witnessing that form, at Guruvayur and also in our own mind, that is meditating on that form. So Rupam Te Smarandaha, that is meditating or doing a dhyana of Guruvayurappan's form. Both of these, both japa and dhyana, will result in us getting submerged in this ocean of bliss, that is pramada bara sindau nibadidaha. By doing japa and dhyana, we will be always in a state where we are in pure bliss. And how to achieve that is what we will see in the next slides. Next is gunakadaha. So we spoke about japa. Bhattacharya addressed japa, then he addressed meditation. So japa starts first, then comes to meditation. Then also gunakadaha kadayandaha. That means narrating Bhagavan's stories, Bhagavan's deeds and excellence, that is talking about Bhagavan's stories to everyone. That is the next aspect that Bhattacharya is addressing, which is, so if you see example of that, focusing on Bhagavan's japa and meditating on that, Hanuman is a perfect example. Same way, Narada Maharshi is also a perfect example of that, and also an example of someone who narrates that stories of Bhagavan to everyone in the universe. So Gunakadaha, narration of thy deeds and excellence to one another. Charandaha, moving about freely. So if you see example is Narada Maharshi, he is moving about freely in the universe. He doesn't have any fixed residence because he is always in that consciousness. He is always in the thought of Bhagavan. So he is able to freely move about, because somebody who is in that level of consciousness, he's able to freely move around. There is no fixed location for such people. So he's moving about freely. That means he's unattached to anything. So he's not attached to any of the worldly pleasures that we see. Therefore, he's able to move about freely without any fixed place of residence, without any attachment. That means he is viewing everything as Bhagavan. Wherever he is, he says that is Bhagavan's place. Wherever he goes, he keeps Bhagavan in his mind. So he's always with Bhagavan. That's why he's able to move about freely. So Kadayandaha Charandaha, that means by moving about freely, he is narrating the story to one another, talking about Bhagavan's stories to one another. Ye Bhaktaha, those devotees who does that. Again, I just used Hanuman Swami and Narada as an example. So Bhattacharya is saying, any Bhakta who does that, those devotees, Twai Khalu Ramande Param, that is in Bhagavan, indeed immersed in the supreme bliss. That means such bhaktas who does that, who is doing japa, who is doing meditation on your form, who is talking about your stories all the time, and who is not attached to anything in the world, they are moving about freely, they will always be immersed in this supreme bliss consciousness, which is Bhagavan himself, the Nirguna Brahman. And they revel in that. That means their own Atma Swarupam, they always are in that nature. Amun, such devotees, but there is now addressing those such devotees, anyone who does that. Somadigada Sarva Abhilashidan. That means such devotees have attained fulfillment of all desires, because Bhattacharya is saying that is the biggest desire that we should long for. It is not any worldly pleasure that we should be seeking. We should seek for that desire, that is to always be able to think and talk about Bhagavan. So such devotees who does that, they have attained all desires, because that is the greatest desire somebody can desire for, right? So that means they do not have other desires other than the Lord, and who have attained that state of desire. So such devotees, they do not have any other desires. They only have the desire for the Lord, and they have attained it. Example is Hanuman Swami and Narada Maharshi are examples. Aham Danyan Manye. Bhattacharya is considering them to be really blessed and fortunate. So such devotees, Bhattacharya says, they are really blessed and they are really fortunate. So now Bhattacharya addressed very important ideas here, which as a Bhakta any of us should understand. That is, starting off with japa, he spoke about meditation, then he also spoke about talking about Bhagavan's story. So let's start with each of these. So in today's session, Dashaka 3 is a long Dashaka where we have to describe a lot. So we will only probably cover the first 4 or 5 slokas, and we'll take up the next sessions in the next section, next of the slokas in the next session. So going on, first Bhattathiri addressed japa. So japa is repeatedly with devotion chanting Bhagavan's name. That is called japa. With devotion, with a humbleness in our mind, if we chant Bhagavan's name repeatedly with devotion, that is called japa. And what we do is, when we do japa, we use a name of the Lord, right? We use a name of the Lord, and all divine names of the Lords are mantras. So any name that you see of Bhagavan is a mantra. You don't need any special mantra for that. Any name that you see of Bhagavan, for example, the name Rama, right? It is a mantra. The name Narayana, that is also a mantra. So that itself is enough. So all divine names of the Lord are mantras, and it is a blessing to be able to chant them. If you are able to chant a name of the Lord, it is a blessing. Now, what we need to know is that mantras are basically ones that have bijaksharas. They have bija shakti. Bija shakti is the power of the deity. So bijakshara, certain mantras or certain words have these bijaksharas, which are basically, which incorporates the power of the deity that we are trying to invoke. So for example, both the words in Rama, Ra and Ma, both are bijaksharas. They have they have the power of the deity, which is of the Brahman itself. In the word Narayana, there are bijaksharas in that. In the word Namaha, there is bijaksharas in that. So all of these words, they are not just random words, they are scientific words. There is a science behind it, because the rishis of our great Bharata, they have tested it. They have tried out with these namas, and they have realized the Bhagavan. So therefore these names have something special in it. It's not like any random name. So that's why it's important that we invoke these names. So for example, let's say if Jiddesh Shetan is here, and if I address Jiddesh Shetan now, he will respond, right? He will respond to that calling. If I call him, and he will respond to that. Just like that, each of these names, they embody the Bhagavan in it. Narayana, if you repeatedly say Narayana, Narayana is in it, and therefore he will respond. Bhagavan will respond to us. So that's why it is important to pick these names. We can pick any other name also to do a japa, right? And through that we will be able to control our mind. But there are specialities in these names, because these names are scientific names, scientific words that are tested by the rishis, which have unique power in it. And it's important that we invoke it, and therefore that deity, the Bhagavan, will respond to us. It is for sure. So by repeatedly chanting the name of Bhagavan, let's say Narayana, 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 we are doing a japa with devotion, with humbleness. We are invoking that Bhagavan to come to us, and he will respond. Now, how is it happening? Each of these names or mantras, names of the Lord or mantras, they have vibrations in it. They create vibrations in it. When we hear the term Narayana, it creates a vibration in us, right? That is because these words or these names, they are part of the cosmic energy. You know, we already said in the previous dashaka, the prana in us, the life energy in us is the life energy everywhere. That is Guruvayoorappan. In Guruvayoorappan, the Guru is the Brahman, Vayu is the prana in us, the cosmic energy in us, which is the life energy in us, and that is the life energy everywhere. So if you invoke these names, you are automatically rising the prana in you. You are bringing the prana. We saw in Dashaka 2, we saw the different chakras, and we said the Anahata chakra, which is in the heart center. As we invoke Bhagavan's name, we are bringing the prana, the cosmic energy, the life energy in you. You are bringing them in attention to your heart, the heart center. And as you repeatedly do this, you are raising that prana from your Anahata chakra to your Ajna chakra, which is here, right? We discussed that, and further beyond. You are able to do that. So by controlling your thoughts, by controlling our thoughts through japa and later meditation, we are able to bring these energy centers, energy in us, the prana in us. We are able to, lift that energy from our lower chakras to our higher chakras, starting off from our heart chakra to the upper chakras in us. And what is happening through that? They create a vibration in us that will change our mind. So you are able to change your thought process in that way by doing this. You can do it through pranayama also. Through pranayama, you are able to control your thoughts. And by controlling your thoughts also, you can bring your energy centers up. And through that, what is happening? Your awareness gets better. You are able to get a very focused attention. So again, your awareness is always there. We are that pure awareness, but our awareness is currently scattered in many things in the world. But by repeatedly chanting Bhagavan's name, we are bringing our awareness. We are using our inner awareness and our will to focus our mind to one thing, and then we are able to bring a proper attention to our mind. With a focused attention of mind, with a powerful mind, we are able to achieve anything in the world. So when you repeatedly chant these names, it creates a change in those who recite it or pronounce it or listen to it. So if I am saying the word Narayana, it is creating a change in me, right? Similarly, whoever is listening to that, they will also feel that change. They will also get impacted by those vibrations. And these sounds are eternal. That means they are not getting lost. They are there everywhere, and it can bring about changes in the human mind. So if we want our mind to change, if we want to make modifications to our mind, this is the path that we need to follow. And when names become divine, as we said before, when we use these divine's name, their power will impact our minds positively, that we already mentioned. So what is the importance of japa? Let's see that. When we do nama japa, when we repeatedly with devotion chant Bhagavan's name, there is a sound created. As we said, that sound is eternal and it is divine. And when that sound is created, our human mind, ordinarily it is scattered everywhere. It doesn't have the ability to focus. It is always associated with many things that we see around. But by chanting Bhagavan's name and by hearing that sound or listening to that sound, our human mind gets directed to that sound. So the mind is now focused on that sound. Then what we can do is, with that, we try to repeatedly do it. We practice it many times, and that way we can condition our mind. Our mind is something that we can easily condition as we repeatedly do something. From the sound, the mind gets directed to the form. So now initially I started off with Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. My mind is now attached to Narayana, that sound of Narayana. As slowly as I repeatedly do this, my mind then get attached to the form of Bhagavan. I can visualize a form of Bhagavan, of Narayana. I can then think of his Keshadipadam, starting off from the face of Bhagavan to the foot of Bhagavan, the feet of Bhagavan, or the other way also. So you are able to direct your mind to the form of the sound. And with practice and repetition, this is something we have to practice. We have to do it repeatedly. And with practice, what happens is our mind stays focused on the form and sound. So mind is then able to, we can focus our mind onto that sound of Bhagavan's name or to the form of Bhagavan, the form that we see of Bhagavan. This process is called dharana and dhyana, which we will see in the next 2 slides. And what does this do? This gives a Bhagavad Bhav to the mind. Our mind becomes like Bhagavan's. Bhagavan becomes into our mind. So our mind is, it was not the mind that we thought of before. It becomes whatever you associate your mind, that is your mind. That is your nature, right? So if you attach your mind to something, the mind is basically made of that. So if you attach your mind to Bhagavan, your mind is now Bhagavan, right? And as you are repeatedly doing it, you will get a Bhagavad Bhav that will reflect in your mind and in your nature, in how you behave. And finally, as we do this for further, we will reach a state where there is no more mind. What is mind? Mind is basically the thought that we have, right? And as we repeatedly do this, we will reach a stage where there is no more mind. That is called knowing by being, which is the samadhi state, which we will address in the next slides. So as I said, taking Bhagavan's name, Narayana, and by repeatedly doing it. So, Anju, can you please mute another?
I'm no more a host now. Jiteshata, can you please let them mute?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so by repeatedly doing this, we will reach a state where there is no more mind, and that is the samadhi state. We'll see that. Now, and that, as I said, in that state, Bhagavan reflects in us, in our heart center. So there are different ways of doing japa. Sharat sir has done a japa yoga lecture where he has given in much details how to go through each of these. I'll just touch upon some of that. So japa, we can do Vaigari japa and Ligita japa. That is the first type of japa. Vaigari is that where we chant Bhagavan's name loudly. Let's say in our prayer room, we sit in front of our deity and we chant the name of Bhagavan with loudly so that we can hear it ourselves. It is important that we do it in a place where there is no other distractions, where maybe nobody is there. If you're doing a japa as a practice, it has to be done where there is nobody else there. We have to do it as our own sadhana. That is Vaigari japa. Ligita japa is writing Bhagavan's name, so you can do that way. Ubamshu is next form of japa where we chant Bhagavan's name in a very slow pace. We don't, nobody else could be able to hear it. We will be able to hear it in ourselves, because we are chanting it in a very slow pace within ourselves, where our lips might be moving, but we won't hear that sound much. It is mostly happening in our mind, but not fully in the mind, because we still are chanting Bhagavan's name outside. Then we have Manasika Japa, where we do japa in our mind. With much more practice, we are able to therefore know, we'll reach a state where we don't have to chant Bhagavan's name loudly, but in our mind we are repeatedly chanting Bhagavan's name. That is Manasika Japa. And then finally there is Ajjaba. That means you reach a state where even if you are not chanting, somebody inside you is still chanting Bhagavan's name. People will reach a state where they might be doing some other job. They might be focusing on something else, but they will see that somebody inside them is still chanting Bhagavan's name inside. That state is called Ajaba, which is the highest state of realization here in terms of Japa, which many of the saints and great devotees do. Okay, so we discussed Japa a bit here. Now Bhattathiri is saying Japa, and he then also spoke about meditation. So the two things that are here, Japa and meditation, which are important for any bhakta. So we'll go to meditation now. So when you repeatedly do Japa, our mind gets ready for meditation. Many times people start meditation without doing this japa part, or without taking into consideration the devotional element of it. Only when you have this japa is when you can train your mind to focus on something. In this case, we are focusing our mind onto that divine Bhagavan itself. Once you have achieved this state, going to meditation would be much easier, because now your mind is in that state where you can easily make it focus on one thing. So japa is very important before you take, or when you do meditation. Both are important. Okay, so now moving on to talk a little bit about meditation, because Bhattathiri addressed meditation here. So in our mind, the inlet to the human mind, what our mind is made up of is basically what we take into the mind. Everything that we take into the mind are food for the mind, right? And that happens through the five senses. That means we take in a lot of information through our five senses: eyes, ears, nose, taste and touch, with mouth, and with tongue, and with our skin. We take in information. They all form an inlet to the mind. So our mind is basically made up of whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we taste, whatever we touch, right? And whatever we smell. That is how our mind is going to be made up of. So it is very important that we choose the right things to see, the right things to hear, the right things to smell, the right things to taste, and right things to touch. Because whatever we do with our five senses, they create a thought in our mind. They create an impression in our mind. So these are the main inlet to how our human mind is made up of. So if you make all of these related to Bhagavan, your mind automatically becomes associated with Bhagavan, right? So that is the first main thing. The second thing is any actions or activities that we have done in the past. So let's say I did an activity 10 years back, right? That action creates some impressions in me, right? That action or activity that I have done, my karma. So whatever I do, not even 10 years ago, whatever I do even now, right? What we do now, that will also influence our mind. So any activity that you do, that creates an impression in the mind. So input through the senses, five senses, these are your jnanendriyas. Activities that you do through your other senses, which are your karmendriyas, that also will influence your mind. So let's say I did an activity now, that activity creates an impression in my mind. My mind becomes associated to that activity. The next thing is the memories in you. That's the point I mentioned before. Let's say I did something maybe 10 years back or 20 years back. It leaves a memory in us, and we never realize that something might come up suddenly. Some kind of an impression or a samskara will come up suddenly, because I don't know, we will think that, okay, from where did that come up? Maybe you might have done that 5 years back or 10 years back, you might have done that activity. So that whenever we do that activity, it creates impressions in us, samskaras in us, which can come up again at some point. So our mind is basically made up of all the three. So it's very important that we know what we are taking in through our senses. It is very important we know what activities we are doing, because that activities will also influence our mind. It is very important that we know what our memories are in us, which we cannot do anything because we might have done that activity, but that will also come up. So these are the things that make our human mind. Now, Bhattathiri is talking about meditation, and it is very important for when we think of meditation, we need to understand how our mind works. What is our mind basically? Our mind is nothing but it is made up of vritti and pratyay. We'll see what they are. So vritti, these are from Yoga Sutras. Vritti basically means fluctuation of a thought in our mind. So if you see now, we are maybe right now, let's say we are in a state where we want to pray to Bhagavan. We are sitting to do a prayer to Bhagavan. Our mind is now focused on Bhagavan. Slowly we will see that the mind might move from one thought to another thought. It might meant to another thing. Suddenly it might, again, we'll never realize it. It will go from that thought to another thought. Then it might go from that thought to another thought. So that fluctuation that happens, fluctuation of thought that happens in our mind, that process is called vritti, or not the process, that is called vritti. Okay, which is basically the modification of mind by the thought generated. So let's say whatever we take in through the senses, that is basically creating that vritti. So if I'm if let's say I watched a movie and then I sit after that, my mind might be going after some of the things that I saw in that movie, right? It might repeatedly that will be coming up and down in my mind. That fluctuation that is happening in your mind, that is called vritti. And the thought that it creates is called the pratyay. So there are two things. Vritti is the modification, the changes that is happening. And the thought that it is creating is called pratyay. So both vritti and pratyay, we need to understand it very well to understand how our mind is operating. So we can think of it like this. Imagine that there is a wave rising in the ocean. And this is just an example. This is just for us to understand. Imagine that our mind is just like a wave arising from the ocean, right? And each time a new wave is generated, a huge wave is generated, right? That generation of that wave is the vritti. Vritti is this fluctuation, the fluctuation that is happening as the wave coming up and then going down, and then another wave coming up and going down. That is called vritti. Pratyay is this wave of vritti creates a thought. That thought that it creates, that is called the pratyay. So for example, let's say I started to sit for meditation or sit to pray. My mind initially started thinking about Bhagavan. So that thought, that it creates a vritti. The vritti is that modification that is happening in my mind, and the thought that it creates is Bhagavan. So that is the pratyay. So this is vritti, and it creates a thought which is pratyay. And that is my mind. My mind is now basically Bhagavan, because I'm thinking of Bhagavan. What you think of, whatever thought you are right now having in your mind, that is you. That is your mind. So right now, if you're thinking of Guruvayoorappan, your mind is Guruvayoorappan. So right now my mind is Guruvayoorappan. I started sitting for, let's say, prayer. Again, a new vritti came. That means a new change is happening. So that means what? This change, this wave is my vritti. There is a fluctuation in my thought process. And what thought it creates is my pratyay. So imagine that I started sitting for prayer, and this creates another wave. That is my vritti, the modification. And what thought it creates is, let's say I thought I started thinking about my home. So my next thought is now, my pratyay is my home right now. Again, suddenly it made a modification, another vritti, and the thought it came was the food that I ate in the morning, right? So the pratyay now, the thought now, my mind is basically that food now. What I'm thinking right now is my mind. So my mind is now the food. And again, a change happened, and now I'm thinking of, let's say, bank balance, right? So what is happening each time? Each time there is a change that is happening in my thought process, which is the modification of the mind. That is called vritti. This is the vritti. That is this, just like waves coming up and down, my mind is fluctuating. That is called vritti. And what thought it generates in that vritti, that's called the pratyay. So I hope that was clear. Now, what is yoga? In Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it says yogascha chitta vritti nirodha. That means silencing of the modification of the mind is yoga. This modification that is happening, this vritti that is happening, if you are able to silence it, there is, instead of these waves arising up and down in our mind, if you are able to make it calm, silence it such that it is no more a wave. We need to reach a state where it is like the interior of an ocean, where there is pure silence. We want to reach that state. So if you are able to do that, That is called yoga, as per Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So yoga is the silencing of the modifications of the mind. Okay, so I hope that was clear. So ordinary mind, the mind of most of us here, or the most common people, the ordinary mind is basically having unstable vrittis and dissimilar pratyais. What does that mean? Unstable vrittis means you are always having a wave come up and down in your mind. Each time you are thinking of one thing or the other thing and the other thing, that is called unstable. That is, there is a modification happening each time. That is unstable vrittis. You may have a very high wave, we may have a bigger wave after that, you may have a smaller wave after that, so it's highly unstable, right? And dissimilar pratyay means each time you are thinking of something else. Each time there is no one unique thing that you're thinking. You first start thinking about your home, then start thinking about the food, then start thinking of money, then start thinking about something else. Such a mind is a typical ordinary mind, and that is a restless mind. That is the state of restlessness. That is, most people are in that state. And for example, in the current world, we are trained to become like that with social media and with the reels and everything. We are automatically conditioned to be like this in the current world. That's why it's very important that we are aware. We should be aware of this. If we are seeking to be a spiritual person, and if you want to realize Bhagavan, more than anything else, this is the most important things that we need to know. How our mind is functioning. How is our mind stable? Is our mind repeatedly going behind things? Is it fluctuating like this? And are we doing activities that helps for this? Because when we are looking at a new information each time, imagine looking at a YouTube reel continuously. This is exactly what is happening. Each time your mind is getting fluctuated with new information, and the thought is created, which is a different thought. So this becomes our normal state or ordinary state. And being aspiring spiritual people, we should be aware of this and start changing our habits. That's the point that we should understand from the first sloka that Bhattathiri is saying. So we discussed vritti and pratyay. So what can we do? So that's the next thing that Bhattathiri is saying. Japa, he mentioned japa, and then meditation. That is focusing on the form of the Lord. So as I said before, our awareness is our only tool. Even though we are getting information from outside, our mind is made up of information coming from outside. Our mind is made up of our past activities, actions that I've done. Our mind is made up of our samskaras, memories in us. But so those are not in our control, right? Some of it we can control, but many of it are not in our control. But what is in our control is our awareness. You always have an awareness in you, which is our pure awareness, which you can always use. So if something is happening, if let's say if you are behaving in such a way, let's say you are looking at reels continuously, you can bring your own awareness and think of that moment and say, okay, this is not the right thing, I should do it to my mind, and be aware of that situation and use your own will to come out of it. So Bhattathiri is saying, using our own awareness, or the point that we need to understand is using our own awareness and with our own will, we have to bring our mind to a focus on something. And here the best way to do that is focus your mind on Bhagavan. That is the best way, and that is called attention. We are able to then put attention or use the property of your mind, or not your mind, your own property. Mind is just a reflection of your thing. It's manifesting from that awareness in you, right? The awareness is seeing your mind. So just like that, so using your own awareness and your will, observe your mind. We need to observe our mind to see what our mind is right now doing, and slowly make it focus on something. That is how we can start this. And we all can do it. I mean, this is what Bhattathiri is saying. We should all try to do it. As bhaktas, this is how the qualities that we should develop. So what we should do here, imagine that we are sitting to pray to Guruvayoorappan, and initially our mind, the vritti is created of Guruvayoorappan. It creates a thought of Guruvayoorappan. So right now our mind is made of Guruvayoorappan. Suddenly again another vritti comes, and Sharat Sir always talks about this example when he talks about Vishnu Sahasranamam. When we start chanting Vishnu Sahasranamam, initially we think of Bhagavan's form, and slowly our mind goes to many other things, right? So this is the technique that Bhattathiri is saying we should use. So first it is now Guruvayoorappan. Slowly our mind moves to something else. When that happens, we need to use our awareness. Use the awareness in us and use our own will, and it is automatic. This will happen to anyone. This is normal. This is how we are all conditioned. So we have to use our awareness and bring back our mind to focus on Guruvayoorappan or whatever we are trying to focus on. So initially it was Guruvayoorappan, it then changed, the vritti is created, now it's a different thought. When that happens, okay, don't judge it or do anything at that moment. Slowly bring the mind back to the what we were trying to focus. Bring it back to Guruvayoorappan. Okay. Then again, it stays as Guruvayoorappan for one more time. The vritti is still changing. There is a changing happening, but it's still focusing on Guruvayoorappan. Again, it goes back to something else. Use your awareness and your will and slowly bring it back to focus on Guruvayoorappan. This process is called a focused mind. What it creates is a mind that is focused. And we are trying to learn to focus through this process. And what is happening in this? Here you will have stable vrittis. That means you will still see waves coming up and down. So, but it is a stable. It is a stable vritti. That means it is not like high wave, low wave, and all that. There is still a wave coming. There is a change, modification happening. That is stable, which you can control with your awareness, and it is still dissimilar pratyay. As we saw, it was still having different other thoughts. It is still dissimilar, but you at least have a stable vritti, and you can bring it back to the old thought that you want to bring, that you wanted to focus on. This is called a focused mind. So even when somebody is trying to study, the students who are trying to study, let's say they start studying and focusing on the material that they want to study, then their mind goes to something else. When that happens, they need to use their awareness and their own will and slowly bring their mind back to what they wanted to study. When again it goes out, be aware of it, bring it back to it. That is a focused mind. And as we repeatedly do this, our mind automatically becomes that, it will learn that. So our brain is basically neuroplastic. That means when whatever we do repeatedly, that becomes part of our subconscious. So if you practice this several times and you repeatedly do this, it becomes a habit in your subconscious. And whenever this again happens later, you automatically will bring your mind back to what you wanted to focus. So that is the importance of focusing on here we are focusing on the form of the Lord, on Bhagavan. That is a focused mind. Then when we are doing, now with that awareness, we go into the next state, which is called dharana. Bhattathiri already said meditation. Now dharana this is what we typically do. Many people say I meditated, but most cases this is what we are doing. Dharana is what we are doing. So let's say we sit to focus on Bhagavan's form. We already discussed a focused mind in the previous one. Now with that experience, we now go into the next stage, which is dharana. So in dharana, the individual, there is subject. Subject is us, the individual in us, the ego in me. That is the subject, right? I, which is, let's say, the individual I, which is a subject, is focusing the mind to an object. Object is our Guruvayoorappan. Let's say Guruvayoorappan is the object that we are trying to focus. So we are trying to meditate on the object, which is Guruvayoorappan. So if you see in this dharana state, subject is separate, object is separate, right? Subject and object are two separate, and the subject is trying to focus or meditate on the object, which is Guruvayoorappan. So subject I is trying to focus on the object, Guruvayoorappan. Again, what is happening? We try to focus on Guruvayoorappan. Vrittis are generated. The pratyay is Bhagavan. You are able to again, my mind again starts to do some modification, but since you already practiced the focusing earlier, now you are able to still keep that focus on Bhagavan. So your mind, even though it creates some modifications, it's still riveted on Bhagavan. So the pratyay is still now Bhagavan. Now occasionally it might go down. It might go, a new vritti is created, a new modification is created, and it will think of something else. So the pratyay now is maybe food. But when that happens, suddenly you are aware of it because you already practiced it before. Now you are already aware of it, so you can quickly bring back to Guruvayoorappan. So in this state, you are still focusing on Bhagavan, but you are focusing with concentration. That means even if there is vrittis generated, vrittis are stable, and the pratyays, if you see the pratyay, which is the thought, is also stable. It is not dissimilar. It is mostly Guruvayoorappan. Occasionally it might change. You again bring it back to Guruvayoorappan. Such a state is called dharana. This is the state that typically most people who meditate are in, because meditation is not a state, it's not something we can actually do. It is not an activity. It is something, it's a state that you reach, right? So what we do as meditation, the first state that you achieve is dharana, which is this state where what you have is a stable vritti. That means the waves are stable. It is not like high and low and high and low and very high wave. It is a stable wave, stable vritti, stable modification. And the pratyas are also similar. The thought it generates are always Guruvayoorappan, and occasionally it might change, but you are easily able to bring it back to Guruvayoorappan. Such a mind is called a concentrated mind, and that is called dharana. That is the dharana where we are focusing on Bhagavan with a concentrated mind. And once you practice this dharana for, let's say, several years, the next state that we reach is dhyana. Dhyana is where you are still focusing on Bhagavan, trying to focus on Bhagavan. Still there is a subject I and an object, which is Guruvayoorappan. The subject I is meditating on the object Guruvayoorappan. And what you see is that you will see that the vrittis that are generated are not like waves. The vrittis are just like a small, like a small wave that rises in a stable ocean. Just like that it is creating. It is not like a high wave. It is a small wave that is rising and falling. And if you see, that wave is rising and falling at the same point. At the same location, the wave is rising and it is falling. It is just like a small, like you see a small water fluctuation. That is how it's happening. And all the time when that is happening, it is always focused on Bhagavan. That is called dhyana. That state where you are completely riveted to Bhagavan without any change happening. Your mind is just like this small wave which just rises up, focusing on Bhagavan, goes down, again rises up, focus on Bhagavan, goes down. There is no modifications happening. There is still vritti. If you see, there is still vritti happening, right? Because there is modification happening, but it is fully focused on Bhagavan. It is on Bhagavan. So that means you are continuously thinking of Bhagavan, right? That is called dhyana. That is the meditative state, dhyana state. So what you see is that non-fluctuating vritti. Vritti is not fluctuating like what you see here in the previous case. It is not like this. It is non-fluctuating vritti. That is this wave that is coming up. And so it is non-fluctuating vrittis rising and falling at the same point. It is at the same location. It is rising and falling. And the pratyay is also the same. It is pratyay is the thought, and that is always the Guruvayoorappan. There is no other thought coming in your mind. Such a state is called a meditative mind. That is the dhyana that we talk about. And so with dharana, as you practice dharana, we will reach a state when dhyana happens, right? And beyond this, but if you see here also there is a subject and object. You are different from Guruvayoorappan. You still are in a state where Guruvayoorappan is separate from you in dhyana state. The next state after that is called samadhi. In samadhi state, what happens is you, the individual, was there who was meditating on Bhagavan in dhyana state. Now you in the samadhi state, when you reach that state in samadhi, you himself becomes Bhagavan. There is no more you, because you understand that all of what you see around is that Bhagavan only, right? You are experiencing Bhagavan as being yourself, right? That state is called samadhi, which is where you don't have any mind. So when there is vritti, there is a mind. Whenever there is a vritti, that is a fluctuation, and it creates a pratyay, there is a mind. There is a mind, as you see here. A mind is when there is a thought. When there is a thought, there is a mind. But when you become the thought, when you yourself become the thought, then there is no more mind, because now you are that, right? So in that state of samadhi, you became that. You are the thought that you were trying to create in your mind. So you became Bhagavan here. So there is no more mind now. So in this state, the subject and the object and the meditation, that all becomes one. Just like how a dancer becomes a dance, like somebody who is so involved in dance, that layam happens, that they become the dance, right? In the same way, somebody who is meditating on Bhagavan, that person who was meditating himself becomes Bhagavan, and there is no more meditation, because there is no more mind, because everything is one now. So the knower, the known, which is Bhagavan, knower is the person, subject, known is Bhagavan, and the knowledge all becomes one. That state is called samadhi. So when you are focusing on Bhagavan, you yourself becomes Guruvayoorappan. That is your samadhi state. And you have to go beyond that. Right now, you are still attached to the form of Bhagavan. What you see here, you have become the form of Bhagavan. But as you go into samadhi, You go from, so we'll see that. So as we go into samadhi, you will go from the form to the formless, which is the nirguna Brahman, the nirguna Brahman that we talk about. Okay, so here the subject is one with the object, and this state is called knowing by being. It is called knowing by being because you became it. So you are knowing Brahman by becoming Brahman. We cannot understand or know Brahman as separate individual. You can know or understand Brahman by becoming Brahman, right? So here that state is called knowing by being, where you are one with that Brahman. In this state, there is no more mind. There is no more vritti or no more pratyay, because there is no more thoughts. There is no more mind. So it is as if like there is only Guruvayoorappan everywhere. It is just like a state where you are in this deep ocean, which is of silence. So in that state of samadhi is just silence. It is just like somebody who is, this is just an example. I'm just giving it as an example. This is just like the deep ocean where there is the full silence. There is no fluctuations or waves rising. It is just calmness all around. That state is the samadhi state. Right? Now, as initially in the samadhi state, as I said, you are focused on the form of Bhagavan, but as you go beyond, you understand that it is all that nirguna Brahman. So that state where you are one with that nirguna Brahman, the Brahman, that is the universal consciousness, which is Bhagavan, is that universal consciousness. That state is called the samadhi state. So Bhattathiri is saying we have to do japa. By practicing japa, we have to then be aware of ourselves, then start doing meditation, where we go through focusing our mind, concentrating our mind, which is dharana, then dhyana, dharana, and then focusing and concentrating, which is dhyana, and then slowly into the samadhi state. Right? So that is the main things that we need to understand from Sloka 1. And the summary, the Sloka 1 summary is that what we need to understand here is that by chanting the divine names of Bhagavan, and I give an example of Lord Hanuman, divine names, and listening to Bhagavan's stories and telling the stories, all of these will help us in remembering Bhagavan at each moment of our life. And by doing this repeatedly, our mind can be made to focus on Bhagavan, and that you can do with attention. Therefore, attention is very important. Our attention is the most important tool here. If we are not able to keep a proper attention, then that is a big problem, and that is, as any spiritual person, this is what they need to work on. Our attention, which we can do with our will and our awareness. Both our will and awareness is what we use to bring our attention, and Hanuman is an example of that. And as you repeatedly do this, we will reach the dharana and dhyana states on Bhagavan's form. Mind, which is thus concentrated on the form of the Lord, becomes sublime, and a state of bliss is achieved. We already discussed all this. So as you concentrate on the form of the Lord, your mind becomes sublime, and then you reach a state of bliss, which is your dhyana state. So in the dhyana state, your mind is focusing on Bhagavan, and you are in that bliss. And as you further do this, as I just said before, as we further do this, when you practice it with devotion, the bhakta reaches a state of realization that there is nothing other than the Lord. You will reach a state where you understand that you are that Lord. You are that one Lord that you described. And that state of knowing is called samadhi, where there is no thought. In the samadhi state, there is no thought. We already said this. There is no mind. And that state is where the knower, knowledge, and known all become one. That is, Hanuman Swami and Sri Rama Swami are both one. That in that state, right? They are not two separate beings. In the previous states, they will show, you will understand it as two separate ones. But in this state, both Hanuman Swami and Sri Rama Swami are one. They are Sri Rama Swami is in Bhagavan, and they are one. That they are united, where they are in that pure bliss. Hanuman Swami is in that pure bliss of awareness. The heart of the bhakta becomes soft with purity and perfect with the flow of devotion. And in that state, there is no time and space. In the previous states, in the dharana and dhyana states, you are still conditioned by the time, kala desha, right? But in Bhattathiri, as I said in the first dashaka, Brahman is kala deshavadibhyam. So in this state of being, where you are knowing by being, where you are one with that Bhagavan, you are beyond time and space, and you will experience the nirguna Brahman in that state. That is a state of samadhi. And in that state, there is no more ignorance. Your ignorance is removed, and you are filled with that bliss of nirguna Brahman, our true form. And Bhattathiri in Sloka 1 is saying that he too wishes to attain that state. Bhattacharya wishes that he too may attain this virtue, which many of the bhaktas have, like Hanuman Swami and Narada Maharshi, they have this virtue. Bhattacharya is wishing that he too may attain this virtue. Okay. Okay, so now with that, we move on to Sloka 2.
गदक्लिष्टं कष्टं तव चरणसेवारसभरेऽपि अनासक्तं चित्तं भवति बद विष्णो गुरुदयाम् भवत्पादाम्भोज स्मरणरसिको नाम निवहान् अहं गायं കുഹജന വിവത്സ്യാമി വിജനേ. രോഗങ്ങൾ ക്ലേശിപ്പിച്ച് വേദന അനുഭവിക്കുന്ന മനസ്സ് നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ തൃക്കാൽ ഭജിച്ച് പരമാനന്ദം അനുഭവിക്കാൻ പോലും ആസക്തിയില്ലാത്തതായി തീരുന്നു. കഷ്ടം. സർവാന്തര്യാമിയായ ഭഗവാനെ, കരുണ ചെയ്യണേ. ഞാൻ നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ പാതാരവിന്ദങ്ങളെ ധ്യാനിച്ചു രസിച്ചുകൊണ്ടും തിരുനാമങ്ങളെ ഇടവിടാതെ പാടിക്കൊണ്ടും ആരുമില്ലാത്ത വല്ല സ്ഥലത്തും പോയിരിക്കണമോ?
So in Sloka 2, Bhattacharya is making a prayer to Guruvayoorappan. Bhattacharya already said the importance of japa and meditation. Now he is saying that Gadaklishtam, that is tormented by various afflictions. Bhattacharya is tormented by various afflictions which are both physical and mental afflictions. So we need to understand Bhattacharya is right now facing paralysis. But it is not just paralysis. Bhattacharya is not having a physical ailment. He also has a mental ailment. His mind is not, he is not able to focus his mind. That is the main problem that he has. More than his physical ailment, the main issue that Bhattacharya is right now having is the issue where he is not able to focus his mind. And if we really think about it, most of us, we all are in this state. We all are just like Bhattacharya, where we are unable to keep our mind focused on one thing, even for some small time. So we all should do this prayer to Bhagavan. Gadaklishtam chittam, my mind, tava charana seva rasabhare abhi, even for the intense bliss of serving or worshipping Bhagavan's feet, for that bliss, anasaktam bhavati, my mind does not feel interested. I am not able to do that. I am not, even for that bliss of serving Bhagavan or praying to Bhagavan with focus, I am not able to do it, Bhagavan, because of his mind's condition. Because he is suffering from a mental problem also, mental affliction, where his mind is distracted. And you can imagine Bhattacharya is talking about it in that age. What would be the state of the mind of all of us who are always distracted with whatever we see around, right? And Bhattacharya is saying, Bada kashtam, alas, what a pity that is. Then Bhattacharya is praying, Vishnu, O Vishnu, all-pervading being, who is Vishnu, Dayam Kuru, be merciful to me, have compassion to me, so that I can come out of this state, be merciful to me. So that is a prayer, because even though I said in the previous Dashaka that you can change your mind by our awareness and our will, we still need Bhagavan's grace. It is not just that we, by practice and all, we can achieve it. We still need to pray to Bhagavan, please grace me with that, because without his grace, this will not be possible. So Bhattacharya is saying, be merciful to me, have compassion to me, so that I can change my mind. And he's saying, Aham bhavat pada amboja smarana rasigaha, I becoming immersed in worshipping thy lotus feet. So be merciful to me so that I can worship, I can immerse in worshipping your lotus feet. That is the prayer Bhattacharya is making here. And he is saying, Nama nivahan gayam. If you grace me with that, I will go on singing thy countless names. Your countless names, I will keep on singing that. I will keep on repeating your countless names. Kuhachana vijane, and he will do it in some secluded place. He's saying that he will go to a secluded, inhabited place where there is nobody else to do this. But there is an inner meaning here. In the secluded, inhabited place, there is an inner meaning which we will see. Vivatsyami, I shall dwell. That means Bhattacharya is saying that if you are graceful to me, if you are merciful to me, compassionate to me, bless me so that I can use my mind to focus on you, and through that I will keep on worshipping you and sing your countless names, and I will do it at a place where there is nobody else. I will be in seclusion and I will do it. And that seclusion is not, you need to, there is an inner meaning there. We'll see that in the next slide. So physical afflictions are basically any disease or pain. We don't have any control on that. Any disease or pain that we experience, they are physical afflictions. And we cannot do anything about it. That is coming from our own past karmas. We are experiencing diseases and pain. Then there are mental afflictions also, which are our likes and dislikes. They are raga and dvesha. Raga is basically, as Sarasar says, raga is basically our we want something to happen in a specific way, or we want something to not happen in a specific way. That push for that is called raga. And if that doesn't happen in that way, the uncomfortability that we feel, the rage that we feel, that is dvesha. And it in normal English we can say likes and dislikes. So our mental state is that we are always conditioned by our likes and dislikes, and both of these are interdependent. That means if you have physical problems, that will affect your mind also. If you have mental problems, like mental afflictions, which are likes and dislikes, which most of us have, that will also create problems to our physical self, right? So they are both interdependent. So it's just like if you go back to the BMI chart that we saw before, we have body, mind and intellect. And if your body is having afflictions, it will affect your mind. If your mind is having afflictions, it will also impact your body, right? And Bhattathiri is in a state of both physical and mental ailment. Bhattathiri is in that state where he's having both. He's having physical problem, which is his paralysis. He's also having a mental issue where he's unable to focus. His mind is repeatedly distracted because of the physical ailments that he has. And most of us are also in this state, because we have both physical issues and we also may have mental issues where our mind is unable to be focused. But one thing that we know is, physical ailments, we cannot do much on physical ailments. But if our mental ailments are cured, that means if our mind is in our own control, then that means if we are able to make our mind a strong, focused, concentrated and meditative mind, as we just discussed in the first sloka, if we are able to do that, if we are able to make our mind strong by making it focused, by making it concentrated, by making it meditative, then we'll be able to apply that mind to go against the physical afflictions. We'll be able to control our physical ailments through our mind, because our mind is the key thing. If we have the mind with us, we are able to control any other physical issues also, right? Because mind, if it is no more attached to the body, we are able to then therefore control the ailments of the body. So that is the main thing. We have to have a very strong mind, and that requires japa and meditation. That is the point here. Now Bhattathiri, who is such a great soul, who is such a great devotee of Bhagavan, he is facing this issue because of this external ailment, external and internal ailment. And because of that, he is not in a position to enter the state of bhakti. He is not able to do bhakti. He is not able to pray to Bhagavan because of his physical ailment. And that is creating mental issues also, mental ailments to him. He is unable to focus on the feet of the Lord and chant names and meditate on the Lord, because his mind is scattered, his mind is distracted, and it is focused on the body. Right now, the state that Bhattathiri is, his mind is focused on the body. It is body aware, and it is thinking about the ailments. And because of that, he is not able to put the mind into focus of Bhagavan. It is not able to approach Bhagavan. So he's praying to Bhagavan to cure him from that, to take him out of that state. And Bhattathiri's prayer is that, have compassion on me and remove the distractions. So compassion that Bhattathiri is asking is, remove the distractions of this painful disease that he is facing, so that I will find my time in solitude. That means he'll go to some inhabited place. That inhabited place is nothing but our inner self. The deep silence that we have, as I showed in the previous slide, the deep silence that we experience in the ocean, that state, that samadhi state, that is the inhabited place that Bhattathiri is talking about here, where there is nobody else to distract you. You are one with that Brahman. In that state, there is nothing else, right? Everything is Brahman. In that state, there is nothing other than that Brahman. So therefore, it is an inhabited place which is full of solitude, and you are in that inner self. So Bhattathiri is actually referring to that. So when you try to interpret this sloga, many times it is interpreted that Bhattathiri will travel to some faraway land where there is no one else and he will sit in solitude there. But the real meaning that we need to understand here is that Bhattathiri is talking about his own inner self, the self-inness, which is that consciousness-inness. So he wants to be in that samadhi state where he is not affected by anything, and spend my time ever immersed in the pure bliss of contemplating on thee. In that state, Bhattadiri will be able to immerse himself into that pure bliss consciousness, that is Bhagavan, in your lotus feet with devotion, and repeat your countless names and attributes. And in that state, Bhattadiri will be able to focus on Bhagavan and repeat his names several times and with devotion and his attributes. So what we need to understand, the true meaning of this sloga is that Bhattadiri is seeking for true freedom. Bhattadiri is not saying that he wants to go to a faraway land and sit there and talk about Bhagavan there. But the actual meaning that Bhattadiri is asking or praying to Bhagavan is that give me true freedom. In that state of true freedom, Bhattadiri will be what he wants is to experience the Nirguna Brahman. Because in the first sloga itself, Bhattadiri made it clear. What he wants is Sandra Ananda Avabodhatmakam. He made it very clear. And he is already a very realized soul. So we should not expect anything lower than that from him. So he is asking that he wants to experience the Nirguna Brahman by going beyond the Saguna form of the Lord. Even if you are attached to that form of the Lord, that is still a binding. And Bhattadiri already is attached to the form of the Lord. Bhattadiri he knows Bhagavan's form very well. He is very much attached to it. Now what he wants is to go beyond that form, which is a Samadhi state, where he is no more attached to the form, where he is now in that Nirguna Brahman state. So he wants to experience the Nirguna Brahman, which is the solitude that he is seeking. That is the inhabited place that he is seeking. And solitude is the manifestation of oneness. The oneness that we saw in the previous slide, where the Bhakta and the Bhagavan becomes one, and then they experience Nirguna Brahman. That is the state that Bhattadiri wants to achieve by focusing in his mind. In that state, there is only oneness. There is nothing else. That is the non-dual state. And that is what Bhattadiri is actually seeking. And in this state, Bhakta, the Guruvayoorappan, the Nirguna Brahman, but it is going beyond the Saguna form of Guruvayoorappan to the Nirguna Brahman form. And the devotee also wants to achieve that Nirguna Brahman, and they are in that state. That is the true freedom that Bhattadiri is praying for in Dashagatri Sloga 2. And that is the solitude, the faraway land that he is asking for, where there is nobody else. There is only one, Bhagavan only. Going to sloga number 3.
Kripa te jata chet kimiva nahi labhyam tanubhridam madhiya kleshaukha prashamana dasha nama kiyati nake lokesmin anishamayi shokabhidahita Bhavat bhakta mukta sugagadimasakta vidadhate. നിന്തിരുവടിക്ക് ദയ ഉണ്ടായി എങ്കിൽ ദേഹികൾക്ക് എന്തെന്നാണ് ലഭിക്കുവാൻ പ്രയാസമുള്ളത്? എൻ്റെ ക്ലേശങ്ങൾ തീർക്കുക എന്നത് എത്ര നിസാരം. അല്ലയോ ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ, ഈ ലോകത്തിൽ നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ ഏതേത് ഭക്തന്മാർ എല്ലാ സമയവും ദുഃഖമൊന്നും കൂടാതെ ജീവൻ മുക്താവസ്ഥയെ പ്രാപിച്ച് ഒന്നിലും താത്പര്യമില്ലാതെ സ്വൈരസഞ്ചാരം ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല?
So in sloga 3, Bhattadiri is continuing. Bhattadiri is saying, I, O Lord, take Kripa with your grace, which he already prayed for in the previous sloga. Jada Chet, if achieved, if we get that grace of yours, Tanu Brudam, for all embodied beings, that means any being in the world, if they get Bhagavan's grace, Kim iva na hi labhyam, what is there that is not attainable? If Bhagavan's grace is there with you, what is not attainable? Like if you are having this mental and physical problems, but if Bhagavan is gracing you, then there is no more that issue. You will definitely come out of it. That is why it is important for us to chant Narayaneeyam, because that is that it is a scripture that is helping us to go out of the physical and mental ailments that we have. That is the importance of Narayaneeyam. So Bhattadiri is saying that whoever gets your grace, what is not attainable to them? Madhiya klesha auga prashamana dasha the task of eradicating my afflictions, the problems that Bhattathiri is having. Namakiyadi, how significant it is. If Bhagavan's grace is there, all these afflictions will be cleared out in a second, right? How insignificant a task it is to put an end to these afflictions that Bhattathiri is experiencing. So he's praying for Bhagavan's grace. Na keke loge asmin. Bhattathiri is now saying, are there not several devotees in this world? Bhattathiri is addressing those devotees who are there in the world who were graced by Bhagavan and who came out of their afflictions. So he's saying, are there not several devotees? There are several devotees. Are there not there in this world? Like Narada Maharshi, who are not affected by any physical or mental ailments because they are purely attached to Bhagavan. Their mind is on Bhagavan and they are therefore able to freely move about in this world. The moving about in the world basically means you are attached to that consciousness. This whole universe is made up of that Brahman. And if you are that Brahman, you are also there everywhere in the universe. That's why Narada Maharshi is able to go anywhere in the universe because he is that Brahman. He knows that Brahman. So in that state, you are one with the Brahman, and that Brahman is ever all pervading. It is there all around the universe, and therefore Narada Maharshi is also all around the universe because he is that Brahman, right? He's realized that Brahman. So are there not several devotees in this world? Anisham Shoga Abhirahida, who are always totally free of sorrows. Devotees such like Narada Maharshi, who are always totally free of sorrows. Bhavat Bhaktaha, such devotees, thy devotees is what Bhattathiri is addressing, thy devotees. Muktaha, they have become liberated. These bhaktas, they have got moksha already. They are Jivan Muktas. They are no more attached to the body or their mind. Therefore, they are Muktas, they are liberated. Asaktaha, that is free of all attachment. They are not attached to anything. Right? They don't have any physical attachment or mental attachments. They are free, they are attached only to Bhagavan. Suga Gadim Vidadade. That means, are they not freely moving about in pure bliss? I already said they are freely moving about in pure bliss means they are that bliss. Now they have become that bliss. So that means, and they are aware of that consciousness. They are that consciousness, and therefore they are able to freely move about anywhere in that pure bliss and consciousness. So we discussed this in our first Dashakam already, the 4 Purusharthas that a human seeks for, which I will just quickly talk about, which Bhattathiri is addressing here. Here Bhattathiri addresses moksha. So there are 4 Purusharthas, which are Kama, Artha, Dharma and Moksha. We already spoke about what they are in our first Dashakam. Kama is all desires, all sensory desires that we seek. That is Kama. Artha is wealth, education, degree, power, learning, knowledge, all that we seek. That is Artha. Dharma is the right actions that we need to do. We already said this, that is, we have to act according to the Dharma. And we also have a 4th one, which is Moksha, which is liberation. So Bhagavan, we already said this in Dashakam 1, Bhagavan, or Guruvayoorappan, gives us both Artha and Kama. He gives you both wealth, education, degree, success, everything, and also your desires. How? With Dharma as the foundation. With Dharma, he will give this. He will not give you. So if Bhagavan just freely gives you Kama and Artha, Bhagavan will just become somebody like who is a wish fulfilling person. You just pray for him something and he just gives you. That is not Bhagavan. Bhagavan will only give you what you deserve according to Dharma. That is why for Bhagavan, Dharma is the foundation. With Dharma as the foundation, he will give you both worldly and spiritual growth. That is Artha and Kama. And through that, Bhagavan will take you to moksha. And the way we have to do that is, the attitude is to serve Bhagavan. This is the attitude that we should have. That is giving everything to Bhagavan. Whatever I do it for Bhagavan. Everything that I do is his alone and I have nothing. That is bhakti. And whatever pleasures and pain that we experience, that is from Bhagavan only. And I will use that to serve Bhagavan better. With that attitude, if we serve, we will get Artha and Kama rooted in Dharma. And through that, we will get moksha. That is the main thing in bhakti, to get to this moksha state. And Bhattathiri is saying that there are already devotees who got that. So bhakti should be, so if our bhakti is just for this Artha and Kama, if this is what we are asking our bhakti or making our bhakti for, then that means we are bringing our bhakti to a very low level. And Bhagavan is not interested in that form of bhakti. If your bhakti is only for Artha and Kama, then that is the lowest level of bhakti which Bhagavan will not appreciate. Bhakti has to be anchored in dharma. That means we have to be following the dharma that we have to follow, doing the right actions and activities that we have to follow, doing good to others, doing service to others, making sure we do the activities that we are supposed to do at that time. That is dharma. With that, Bhagavan will give you artha and kama, and through that, what we will have is bhakti, which is dispassionate. We won't have any more passion to anything. We will be only passionate about Bhagavan. We'll also develop indifference. Whatever comes to our life, we will reach an attitude where we will say that, okay, this is from Bhagavan, I accept it. What if you get a good thing, you will surrender it to Bhagavan. If you get a bad thing, that also you will surrender it to Bhagavan. Say that it is coming from Bhagavan. That attitude comes from bhakti, which is anchored in dharma. And many devotees already have it, like Narada Maharshi. So Bhattacharya is praying to Bhagavan that there are many who have attained this higher state of moksha, the moksha that we just spoke about, through single-minded meditation. So by doing meditation, there are many bhaktas who achieved this state. That is, by quietening the mind, by controlling their vritti and pratyay, there are many devotees like Narada who have reached this moksha state. Now, Bhattacharya is saying, since that is the case, Bhattacharya says that pure devotion to the Lord will easily eradicate our physical and mental afflictions. Because when you have pure devotion, you are no more attached to your physical body and your mental attitude. You are only attached to the Bhagavan. So with pure bhakti, you will come out of this body-mind interactions, or that association with body and mind. So what is happening here? As we practice japa and meditation, our mind gradually disappears. That means we don't have a mind anymore. Our mind or our thoughts reduce. There is quietening of the mind, and then you will reach silence, samadhi. There is no mind. When this happens, our material desires gradually cease. That means we won't have any attachment to any material desires anymore. Even if you might still seek material things, but you are not attached to it. That unattachment, dispassion is developed. And therefore we become free of artha and kama. We no more seek for artha and kama. Even if you get artha and kama, you are not attached to it. You might still do your activities for artha and kama, but you are no more attached to it. In that state, our mind will immerse in this consciousness, the Brahman, that pervades the universe, like how Narada Maharshi has achieved it. This is Bhattacharya's goal. This is what Bhattacharya wants to achieve. However, for that, we need definitely our own, we need to practice it from our own side, but we also need Bhagavan's grace. So that is the grace that Bhattacharya is praying to. Please bless me, please grace me with that, to go beyond my likes and dislikes. And that grace, to get that grace, to get Bhagavan's grace, what should happen? To get Bhagavan's grace, we need to make our mind pure and focused. Without a pure and focused mind, we will not get Bhagavan's grace. So for that, we have to make our mind pure, in the sense that it should not be working according to our likes and dislikes. Make it pure through japa and meditation. That's why japa and meditation are important. And through that, we make our mind focused. Our mind becomes pure and it becomes focused. And our attention is, each time as we repeatedly do it, our attention improves. So the key thing here is our attention. So purity, focused mind, and attention is what Bhattacharya is asking for from Bhagavan. So the main point is, this is a key thing in Sloka 3. There are many people who have abandoned their attachment to body or their ego. How? With a focused mind, they were able to get a focused meditative mind, and they are now freely living in this world, like Narada Maharshi. However, they are still performing all their dharmic actions. They still perform all their actions with dexterity and intelligence. They are not shying away from their activities. They still do their actions with dexterity and intelligence. However, without any attachment. They are doing it without any attachment, and they are doing it as a self-surrender to Bhagavan. Whatever they do, they surrender it to Bhagavan. That is the state that we should seek for. And Bhattacharya is also praying for that state. Bhattacharya is expressing his prayer to Guruvayoorappan that he too may attain that state. This is Sloka 3. We'll take up Sloka 4 and end it here in the next 15 minutes, going to Sloka 4.
मुनि प्रौढारूढा जगति खलु गूढात्मगतयो भवत्पादाम्भोज स्मरणविरुजो नारदमुखाः चरन्दीशस्वैरं सददपरिनिर्भादपरचेत् सदानन्दाद्वैत प्रसरपरिमग्ना किमपरम्. സർവേശ്വര, ഗൂഢമായ ആത്മഗതിയുള്ളവരും അവിടുത്തെ പാതാരവിന്ദങ്ങളെ സ്മരിച്ച് അരോഗന്മാരുമായ നാരദൻ മുതലായ മഹർഷിമാർ ലോകത്തിൽ പ്രസിദ്ധന്മാരാണല്ലോ. അവർ എപ്പോഴും പ്രകാശിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന അഖണ്ഡ സച്ചിദാനന്ദത്തിൽ മുഴുകിക്കൊണ്ട് സ്വൈരസഞ്ചാരം ചെയ്യുന്നു. മറ്റെന്തു വേണം?
So we already discussed many of the elements of this sloka in the previous sloka. So Bhattathiri is saying, Isha, O Lord, Bhattathiri is praying to Guruvayoorappan, Gudatma Gadayaha. There are several devotees like Narada Maharshi who move about freely unnoticed. This is very important point for us to understand. They have a Gudatma Gada in them. That means whatever they do it in a secretive way, which normal beings like us don't understand. And why is it important for us to understand? We'll see that in the next, as we explain this. So they move about freely, unnoticed. That means their movements are not known to others. Other people like us, we will not understand what they are doing. That means they are in with that Bhagavan. They know their self. They know that their Atman, the Atman in them is the Bhagavan, Brahman. They know that they are one with that Brahman. And that is actually a secret to many others because we don't have that awareness. Most of us do not have that awareness as of now. Therefore, it is secretive to us. They only know it, that knowledge. And therefore, they do activities that are a bit secretive. In the sense, we'll see what that is. So, Narada Maharshi is an example of that. Sri Shuka Maharshi is an example of that, who are able to move about freely in the universe because they are one with that Brahman. And therefore, that path of them, their Dinacharya is something we don't know because it's secretive, because they are one with that Brahman. Bhavat Pada Amboja Smarana Virujaha, that means who have become free from all sorrows. How? By constant contemplation of thy lotus feet. Nirandara Smarana. Nirandara Dhyanam. They are doing Nirandara Smarana. Through that they have achieved Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi state with Bhagavan. Therefore they are free from all sorrows by constantly contemplating on Bhagavan. Muni Prauda, which are great sages who have achieved this. Narada Mugaha. The leading one in that is Narada Maharshi, Bhattathiri is saying. So Bhattathiri is now giving the example of Narada for the first time in this Dashaka. Even though we addressed Narada before, first time he's saying Narada Mugaha. Leading is Narada, and others like Shuka Maharshi are examples of others. Hanuman Swami. Ruda Jagadi Kalu, who are indeed well known in the world. These sages are like Narada, who are indeed well known because of that. Sadada Parinirbad, they are always immersed in Bhagavan because they are well known in the world because they are immersed in Bhagavan, right? That's why they are well known. And what is their state? Parachit Ananda Advaita Prasara Parimagnaha. They are in the state of supreme non-dual bliss consciousness. Very important word. Ananda here means bliss. Pure bliss is Ananda, which is the same Sandra Ananda Avabodhatmakam in the first sloka. Parachit, Chit is consciousness, which is Nirguna Brahman consciousness. Advaita means non-dual. Non-dual means there is nothing else. Advaita means there is nothing else. There is only one. Advaita Vedanta means it is preaching that there is nothing else other than the Brahman. That is non-dual Advaita, which is ever effulgent. That means they are in that ever-flowing Nirguna Brahman state, where they are always in the state of bliss, consciousness and non-dual. They are one with that Brahman. Charandi Swairam, they move about at will. I already said this in the previous sloka. These Maharshi like Narada, they are able to freely move about in the world because they are one with that Brahman. So if the Brahman is, they are everywhere. If the universe is the Brahman, and if Narada Maharshi is one with that Brahman, therefore Narada Maharshi is also able to move about freely. He can be anywhere in this universe in that because he is one with that Brahman. So they move about at will because of that state. Kim Abaram, what more is there to be decided in life? Bhattathiri is saying, what else do we need? If you are able to achieve this state of one with Bhagavan, what more is there to be decided in life? That is what Bhattathiri is saying. Bhattathiri is also seeking for that. So we'll just explain this sloga and then end here. So sages like Narada, they are very important people. Narada Maharshi has a big significance in any seeker's life, in any devotee's life. They are great and divine. They are famous because of their devotion to Bhagavan. They are famous. What else do they do? They also carry the universe. Narada Maharshi is one person who carry the universe because he will come at the right time in front of the right bhakta to give guidance. You will see a lot of examples in Bhagavata where Narada Maharshi comes in front of the bhakta to give them the right guidance, to give them maybe a mantra. So you might come as a guru in our life. So Narada Maharshi carries the universe. Narada Maharshi is nothing but the witness in us. The awareness in us is Narada Maharshi. Let's say if we are doing some activity and an awareness in us is telling not to do that, and still we go and do it. But that awareness who is telling us not to do it, that is Narada Maharshi. That is the witness in us. And he will always be there at the right time to guide people. And he's still there with us, giving us guidance. And these people, these sages, these beings, Narada Maharshi and others, they have a very secretive path. That means they have a Atmagati. Their soul has a path that we don't know how they act, how they do it. Because they are doing it, they are in full devotion with Bhagavan. So therefore it's secret. This is something we also need to understand. If we are having devotion, that devotion has to be kept secret. If you are publicly projecting our devotion, it gets wasted. So if you are devoted to Bhagavan, that devotion has to be kept because it's a very special thing for you or for us. Our devotion and our bhakti is very special and it is something that Bhagavan is gracing us with. So therefore it is very important that we keep it very secretive and very in a very special place of our life and not throw it here and there. But Sarasar also talks about it in his lectures. So here Bhattathiri is also saying that they have a secretive path. That means we also, whatever bhakti and devotion we have, we should also keep it as a secret thing in us and should not project it everywhere. And therefore we should also have a Jivita Charya. These sages, they have a Jivita Charya which is secretive, which no one knows. Whoever devotees like us who wants to become like them, we should also have a Jivita Charya, a Jivita Sadhana. That sadhana has to be kept protected. You should not show that sadhana and project it everywhere. It has to be kept very special in us. It is not something for us to show around, and it has to be kept secret. That is the point that we need to understand here. So this highly secretive, highly subtle oneness with the Supreme Brahman, which is the state of Narada Maharshi, that is their path. That is the path in which they are moving. That this path normal beings are not aware of. We don't understand it, how they are doing it. We can only, that is why it is unknown to us. We are unable to reach that state of Brahman because we don't know the path. They are having a very secretive Jivata Charya, which we can also do through bhakti, which we have to keep it very special and sacred. Since they are eternally liberated beings, they are one with this Brahman. So I already said this, but this is how Narada Maharshi is operating. He is one with that Brahman, which is ever pervading, omnipresent. The Brahman is omnipresent. That means it's all pervading. It's there everywhere. Therefore, but Narada Maharshi can travel or be anywhere. Since he is the Brahman, he is one with that Brahman, and the Brahman is everywhere. So Narada Maharshi can also be anywhere because there is nothing other than the Brahman. And the Veena that Narada Maharshi carries, that is Nada Brahman. So Narada Maharshi is always using his Veena. Sound is coming from the Veena. That is the knowledge of the Brahman. Wherever Narada Maharshi is going, he is giving that, he is providing that sound, that Nada Brahman to the surroundings, that where he is. And the music from the Veena is the sound stream of eternity, the Brahman. The Brahman itself is playing from Bhagavan's, Narada Maharshi's Veena. And Narada is spreading the sound stream of Brahman everywhere. That's why Narada is like our Guru who comes at the right time in our life to bless us with that awareness. And he's also there in us, the awareness in us, the witness in us. Such sages like Narada Maharshi and Sri Shuka Maharshi, they do not have any physical or mental afflictions or sufferings because they are in constantly remembrance of Lord's feet and has removed all such other impressions, other physical and mental impressions they have removed from their life. That means raga and dvesha, which are likes and dislikes, we said before, which are our mental sufferings, which attaches us to the physical body and the mental attitudes. They are no more attached to this raga and dvesha. They have come out of it. For them, this state, for raga and dvesha to go, to have to extinguish the raga and dvesha in us, we should come out of our attachment to our body, which we already said. That means our ego and egocentric desires, and that needs to go away. Means we need to develop indifference and dispassion. I already said this in the previous sloka. We will get indifference and dispassion when we serve Bhagavan. Say that everything is from Bhagavan and I surrender everything back to Bhagavan, whatever I get. So the attitude is giving everything to Bhagavan. Everything is his and his alone. I have nothing. That is bhakti. And all my pleasures and pain that I experience are from Bhagavan alone. I will use this opportunity to serve him better. If we get a pain in life, understand that that pain is also coming from Bhagavan to change us, to modify us. And we will use that opportunity to serve Bhagavan better. That's how, that is the attitude. And with that attitude, we will develop indifference and dispassion that will allow us to come out of our raga and dvesha, which Narada Maharshi has already achieved. And to get that, what do we need? To get that, our mind needs to be filled with devotion. That's why this japa and meditation are important. Mind needs to be filled with the devotion, bhakti. And for that, the mind needs to be concentrated. What does concentration mean? Mind needs to be disciplined, made focused, made concentrated, and made meditative, which we already said in the previous sloka. A concentrated mind will develop devotion and becomes liberated and free. That means we will not have any more attachments. All attachments will disappear and we will no more have sorrow for our body or the mind. Such souls who have achieved this, like Narada, they are constantly immersed in the bliss of supreme reality. We already said this. They are always in that state of Brahman and they wander freely in that state of bliss, consciousness. Bhattathiri is asking, what more is to be achieved than this state? This is the pinnacle of what we should seek for. There is nothing else to seek. So what more is to be achieved than this state is what Bhattathiri is asking. So summary is that, this is a summary of sloka 4. The essence that shines everywhere is the Supreme Brahman. Whatever you see around is that Brahman only. The knowledge of the Supreme Self, which is the absolute consciousness. That is the absolute consciousness, the Brahman, and it is also supreme bliss, Ananda. It is also non-dual, Advaita. There is only one. There is not a second thing. That is why it's called Advaita, Ananda, and consciousness. Sandra, Ananda, Avabodhatmaka. Sages like Narada are immersed in that. They are immersed in this Brahman, absolute bliss consciousness. They are always immersed in that, and therefore that becomes their way of life. And they are free of all limitations because they are in that state. And that is the real freedom. This is called freedom. Freedom is not doing anything that we want. That is not freedom. Achieving this state where you are not attached to anything and you are able to freely move about in that oneness, that is the real freedom. And that is what Bhattathiri is seeking or praying to Guruvayoorappan to bless him with. Okay. So with that, we will end. Okay, I will just have one more slide for sloka 4. We already said this vritti and pratyay, that is the thoughts. So our mind, this is the key thing that we need to understand from today's slokas 1 to 4. Our mind is nothing but the vrittis, the modifications, and pratyay, whatever thought it generates. Right now, my mind is made up of house. Here, the mind is made up of food. Here, mind is made up of money. So right now, your mind is in this state. If you ask me what is my mind in this state, my mind is the home because it is attached to home. Here the mind is attached to food. Here mind is attached to money. And this modification that is happening, which is vritti, and the thought it creates is pratyay. But in between two thoughts, you have one wave rising and then there is a gap and then the next wave rising. The silence between that is your true nature. That is the deep ocean. So between two thoughts, the silence that you see, that is the silence you experience in japa and meditation that we need to achieve. That is the silence is our true nature. That is the absolute consciousness. The Ananda, the non-dual Brahman, is the silence in between our two thoughts. And that is what we need to seek. That is the Brahman. And that silence is what we need to achieve through japa and meditation. We need to get to that state of silence. And that is our true nature, which is absolute consciousness, absolute bliss, which is Advaita, non-dual, which is explained in Sloka 4. So with that, we will end today's session, and we'll continue from Sloka 5 in our next session. We are, both Anju and I, dedicate this session to our Ponnu Guruvayoorappan's feet. If there are any mistakes, we apologize, but the session, and we are dedicating it to Bhagavan, and we thank everyone who has joined this session. Narayana Gila Guru Bhagavan Namaste Guruvayoorappa.